Welcome to the Raising Confident Girls podcast, your guide to raising strong, confident daughters. I'm Melissa Jones, the founder of Girls Positivity Club and a teacher for over 20 years. In a world where girls often feel overwhelmed, anxious, and confused, this podcast is your go-to space. As caregivers, we navigate challenges together. I founded Girls Positivity Club to provide a place where you belong and get the tools to face today's hurdles. Consider this your regular check-in with a trusted friend, offering insights and practical tips for meaningful conversations. I'm here to help you feel confident on this journey of raising a generation of empowered girls. Let's dive in and raise those confident girls together. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Raising Confident Girls. I'm your host, Melissa Jones, the founder of Girls Positivity Club, and I want to welcome you if this is your first time or you've been here many, many times. Welcome, and I'm so excited to talk with you like I am every week. And this topic this week comes from a lot of parents who have reached out to me just at different times in the last month about different kinds of transitions that their families are facing or that their daughters are facing. But really, it's family changes. And that's the majority of what I'm going to focus on today. So I'm talking about things like separations, divorce, people getting sick in families, illnesses that are, chronic illnesses or, cancer diagnosis, things like that, deaths of pets, moves, doing a totally new activity in the summer. So lots, and even moving, I've talked about this before, but like transitioning from elementary school to middle school, or however that works in your community, is like when your daughter even transitions from one type of school to another, even within the same district. And so before I get too deep into the episode, I want to remind you that if you are interested in me working with your daughter one-to-one, I'm still having a couple of spots left for that. And really what that is I would talk with you first. We would come up with like, what challenges is your daughter, facing that she needs some extra one-to-one support from me on. And then we would come up with a plan of me meeting with her 12 weeks. And, really what I like about that time frame is that in 3 months, like, you really can see the progress. And that's one thing that, we want to support our girls in. And, sometimes we need a little help. I know I did when I was growing up. I needed someone other than my mom and dad. Obviously, I still valued their opinions and all of those things. And at the same time, there's this idea that girls have where it's like, well, you have to say that because you're my mom, or you have to say that because you're my dad. So when there's an outside person who is positive in your daughter's life, it's just another person on your team. So if you are interested in me working with your daughter, please reach out to me at girlspositivityclub@gmail.com, and you can just put in the subject line one-to-one or working with my daughter, and then just describe what you would like to talk about in our discovery call. And then we'll hop on a call and see if it's a good fit for both of us. And so I really love doing that. It's just another way that I can give back to families and girls in different ways. And I have a lot of experience. So it's a way for me to share one of my gifts with families. So that's one thing. And then if you're listening to this in real time, our summer camp is 90% sold out, and it could be more than that by the time you listen to this. So if you're in the Noblesville area, Noblesville, Carmel, Westfield, in Indiana, in these areas, please reach out to see if we have space available, and you can just, DM me on social media or just send me an email, same thing, about summer camp. I would love to have your daughters join us. It's a lot of fun. And if you're not in my local area, and this is the only camp that I still do, and I love doing it because it keeps me in touch with the girls. It allows me to really craft activities that are empowering her confidence while also having fun with art and baking. And it's going to be really, really cool this year. This is our 4th year of doing summer camps. And then my goal is to expand those camps to other parts of the country and even the world eventually. So just know that that is coming and that is on my radar. So if you're bummed that you're not in this local area, then just know that things are coming in the next year. And I'm really excited about that too. So, when you think about transitions with your daughter or girls in your life, and if you're thinking to yourself, well, we're not really going through anything, like it doesn't mean that this isn't a valuable conversation, because you might have a niece who is. I know I have a niece who's getting ready to graduate and go to college. And so that is one thing that, is a transition for her. Yes, it's a positive transition, but it's going to be a lot of change for her. And, or if it's just you looking at your future self, like, okay, I know that eventually she is going to transition to, this certain school, or we are actually thinking about moving, or whatever it would be. So this is something that, I've had parents, like I said, reach out to me about some separations recently. It's just one of those things that sometimes happens, especially in the new year. Some people are looking for a change in their life. And, and I don't know for sure if the parent reaching out, I had 2 separate parents reach out on different occasions, just to let me know what was going on and to ask for support in clubs and camps and things like that. And also to tell me that Girls Positivity Club is a support to her daughter. And both parents in that case who reached out about a recent separation, they were like, I'm so glad that she's part of Girls Positivity Club, because it's really helped her have that safe space to belong. And then the other parent was reaching out about, like, she really loves summer camp. Things are kind of up in the air right now. Just wanted to let you know. So, those things, of course, no one wants that to happen, but I can tell you that when I've gone through things like that personally as an adult and as a child, I'm from a divorced family. So my parents divorced actually when I was a baby. So I really have no recollection of my biological dad in my life, other than seeing him on weekends. And so that is a totally different type of lifestyle, is like seeing the other parent on the weekends and things like that. And I know there are a lot of different joint custody and just all kinds of versions of that. And I know a lot of families, have that. And whether it's new or whether it's something that your kids have experienced pretty much their whole lives, there's still some transition that can happen, especially if that other person starts dating, or you do, or they get remarried and you're not sure about a step parent, things like that. And then there's their extended family, and, really releasing that control of them being with that other parent, not knowing exactly what they're doing, if they're following the same values and rules and things as you do, or if they do things differently. I know my dad, when I would go with him on the weekends, would let me drink Mountain Dew. And that was something that my mom and stepdad never let me do. Like, that was just off limits. Like, they just didn't believe I needed that. And so it's not that it was anything, super, super harmful, but, there are just little things like that. So even, in these families talking about separations, there's, where is she going to sleep? Where, how will that look? What will they do when they're together? Or this could even be an illness where, I know with my dad, like, he got really sick unexpectedly, and we have no idea that he had a brain tumor. And that really rocked all of our worlds, because he was such an upbeat, positive person who was super healthy, like ate flaxseed on his oatmeal and took fish oil pills and did push-ups every morning, in his late 60s. And so it was a huge shock for us that this had happened. And I know that in my child's life, like, my dad was a big part of, our lives. And so it can be things like that. It can also be moving. I've had several families reach out and say that in clubs and working one-on-one with girls, they've said, like, we're moving out of state. I have one family that's moving to a totally different state, thousands of miles away, and that's coming at the end of the school year. They want to finish out the school year and then move. I had a mom reach out last week even saying, just want to let you know that we love your summer camps, but sadly, we're not going to be able to attend this year because we're moving. And a lot of this was due to jobs or really the family who's moving thousands of miles away, they just wanted a different scene. They just didn't love the school system and the environment, even though her daughter like is a really high functioning, like does really well in school. There were just some things that didn't align with their values. And then also they just wanted a change of scenery, literally from going from the city to more of a, I don't want to say rural country area, but just more nature, being around more nature, being in a totally different climate. And so, these are things that come up with families. And no matter what that is, this could even be a change in a pet, like maybe a pet gets lost, or maybe, and that was like a comfort for your daughter, or maybe a pet passes away. I know I have a chocolate lab that's getting older and is having some problems with his back and things. And that's really hard too, especially for kids, because they're like family to them, even though they're not human family. A lot of us, we have pets that are important to us and have been through a lot of our lives together. And so, no matter what the transition would be, even a death, happening, can really kind of rock your daughter's world. And so what I want to do today is talk about, ways that you can support her in that and yourself, because I know when my dad passed away, not only was it hard for my child, but it was also really hard for me because I was navigating my own grief and then also supporting, everyone else's grief at the same time. Or, when you're moving, it's like there's so many moving parts of, if you're hiring movers, if you're packing things, if you're, closing on the house and what you're going to do. And, are you going to keep these things? What are you going to donate? Like there are just a lot of decisions. And then even things like trying new activities. Like I had a girl who, decided to go into some theater, and she was talking about that she was really excited about that, but also a little bit nervous. Even though she wanted to do this play, she really wanted to explore new activities, but that felt like a transition, like scary, because she was leaving an activity that was very familiar and trying something completely new. So however this would look for your daughter or the girls in your life, maybe a niece, a cousin, your whoever, your sister is going through this with her stepchildren or whatever it would be. This is an important one to have. And so the main problems with this can cause, and the way this can rock your daughter's confidence is this can cause anxiety about the future. Like, where will I go? Will I have friends at this new school? Will they be nice? Will we have things in common? Or, my papa was the one who took me to my music class. And even though, yes, of course, we know that other people can take your daughter where she needs to go, but if it was a special bonding time, it's like, how can you not replace it, but how can you kind of fill that gap? Or if your daughter came home from school and, the dog always ran and greeted her at the door or ran to the bus stop, whatever that would be at the end of your driveway, it's like, how can you kind of fill that void or help her process through, like, okay, I'm not going to see the little tail wagging at me, at this time, or whatever the situation would be. So there can be even sadness and grief from, family members, pets, obviously, and even also your old life. So when there is a change, like in divorce or in separation, even when that's a positive thing, when both parents recognize that like they're not in a healthy relationship and it's causing, problems in the family, even though it's best in the long run for both people involved, both of the people that were married, it's still, kids always secretly want their parents to get back together. And it doesn't mean that they wouldn't love, like, look, I was raised by a step parent who was my dad from the time I was 2 years old. And I don't call him stepdad, the one that passed is who I'm talking about, and had the brain tumor, but he raised me. I mean, I was with him day to day. And he ended up being a very positive person in my life. But I know that that can be really tricky. When my dad would have girlfriends, my biological dad, and I would visit him, and he would have girlfriends, I would often feel like an outsider, or I didn't really know how I fit in their family and things like that. So there can be like almost a sadness or grief of like an old life, or wishing that things would be different, even in those situations, or even in moves. Like when you're moving, there's kind of a grief of an old life, of like leaving friends behind. I know I had that when I moved. Is like, my best friend Beth lived across the street, and I really grieved her. Even though, yes, we could visit, you get busy, you mean to, but it doesn't mean that I cut ties off completely with her. But it still was really hard because she was my person. Like, we would go across the street and hang out and play like every day, pretty much after school. So that left a big void in my life when we moved. So there was some sadness and even grief about that. There can also be confusion about family structure, like when there's a separation, especially. I know in my case, like my husband and I were separated after my dad died. There were just a lot of things happening, and my husband's a police officer, so there was some trauma that he experienced at work and wasn't able to communicate that. And anyway, that left a disconnect. I was grieving my dad. Like, there are a lot of different circumstances, and one person can choose to move out. And that was something that was out of my child's control. And so that can feel very out of control or confusing. Like, are they getting back together? Are they not? And my husband and I went to therapy and ended up coming back together. But, regardless, there can be healthy ways to split. And sometimes there is turmoil with it. And there are things that happen that you don't want to happen. And that can be really confusing for our daughters. And so there can also be like a loss of control. So they can feel like they don't have control over their environment anymore. They don't have control over their routine. And so girls might, start to be a little just less secure in who she is because of these changes. And we want to avoid that as much as we can, or support her through it so that there's not a huge hit to her confidence and her own self-love. And like, a lot of times there can be like I should have done this, or maybe I could have changed this. And those are things that kids can naturally do in transitions, but or they can feel like they don't have a voice, and especially when there's a change made that they don't really love. And so they might act out, they might struggle in their new normal situation. And it's not unusual for girls to feel a little bit lost during that time, which can have, if it's not remedied, or if there are not precautions taken, it can really have long-term damage on her. And I know that's not what you want. I did have a lot of long-term damage because when I moved, my family moved to a new part of town when I was 8. That's when all of my internal chaos started, because the lack of familiarity and the different types of girls that I was meeting at my new school didn't match who I was used to. And so my parents didn't know at the time. And look, we all do the best we can with what we have at the time. And like, my mom and dad didn't know, like they didn't know to do some of these things that I'm going to tell you about today. And so I want to tell you these things so that you can either pass it on to a friend who's going through this, or pass it on to your sister or sister-in-law or whoever it would be, or even if it is for yourself. And I hope these really do help you in any of these situations. And obviously, I don't wish any of this on anyone, but these are things that can happen. And also, there can be positives in it. Like, a move can be a really great thing. And just because, maybe you had a not a great experience with moving, that doesn't mean that your daughter has to have a negative one. You can always do things to take precaution and to support her through any of these things. And same thing with any of the scenarios I've mentioned. So the first one is to create a sense of familiarity and stability. So I know this sounds like a no-brainer, but you want to have similar routines, rituals, traditions to remind your daughter of things she loves and things that are consistent in her life. So whether this is any kind of a life change, this could be a family movie night, maybe even if it is a separation or a divorce situation, you can still have a family movie night. And yes, it might look a little different, but maybe you can build a little fort, or you can do something new that still feels familiar, but it fills that tradition that you had maybe as a whole family. This could also be special bedtime routines. Like I've talked a lot about different ways you can support your daughter and have open conversations at bedtime. And this could be as simple as, like we say in Girls Positivity Club, what was your yay today? And were there any nays? Were there any challenges? Or what's something you're grateful for today? Or what's something that made you smile today? Like, it can literally be a lot of different things. And this doesn't have to be a long conversation, but just a quick check-in at bedtime. And I found that at this time of day, a lot of times our kids are really reflective and they do want to talk. So maybe building in that space and giving yourself more time in the bedtime routine, that way it's not rushed. and you're not feeling like you have to, rush a conversation, or if a long conversation comes up, stress about how late they're being up or things like that. So, maybe it's even a little cherished memory box for little items that were either from her, the person who passed, or from something that was special that she shared with her dad, or whatever, if there is a separation or divorce, so they feel like they're still near them. So maybe there's a little item like a teddy bear, or a little picture or something like that. I know, for my child, we keep like a little picture of my mom and dad, and right on the nightside or the bedside table. And that's a really good reminder of, my dad's always watching over, or, I don't know, it's just like a special thing. And so it could be a favorite blanket, things like that, especially if they're going to a new place. I know for me, when I went to my dad's house, I always felt like I was staying in the guest room. Like it never felt like it was my bedroom. It was always very stark and like very clean and very organized, but I just never felt like it was mine. And so my mom would let me a lot of times take like a special stuffed animal or blanket. And this is even when I was getting older, just something familiar with me, like my sketchbook, or just something that I liked to do that felt like my home. Or like when I was younger, I would take my dollhouse with me to my dad's and play with it, or certain coloring books or whatever it would be. And then that just felt like I was bringing a piece of myself with me when I went to an unfamiliar environment. Um, so this could be artwork, that she keeps on the wall, like anything. And so if you are the parent who is, experiencing a change, whether a move or a separation, a divorce, or something like that, it's keeping something familiar in that routine, that is going to kind of soften that transition a little bit, that brings comfort and keeps the feeling of home just alive and well with her. And same thing with when you're moving to a new place, even if this is a positive move, like both of the cases of the families, they want to move. Like, of course, they're going to miss familiar things with their community and school and things like that, but they're both looking forward to the newness of it. And at the same time, you want to try and find similar activities. So I know that, one of the girls, she's really into taking music lessons. And so they're trying to find a place that offers the same type of music lessons in that new community. Or another girl takes dance classes or soccer or whatever. So looking into those activities that she's familiar with before you move is really important. Or even enrolling her in a summer camp in that local area to get to know new people. And that can feel really scary because chances are she's going to show up and know no one. But it's also a good opportunity for her to build her confidence that she can still be herself and she can show up in a new place. And maybe it's a familiar type of summer camp. Like, let's say she loves adventure camps. And so she's done an adventure camp every year and she's always gone to this same one. But maybe in this new area, there's a new kind of adventure camp. And so the activities would be familiar, but the people would be new. So just trying to kind of bridge that gap a little bit easier. And, if it's an animal and you're not ready to replace the animal, maybe she can volunteer at an animal shelter. And there is this thing called cat socializers. I didn't realize this until I had a girl that I worked with one-on-one who was really into cats, but her family had allergies. And so one way they bridged that gap was we found an opportunity for her to go to the local animal shelter and be what they call a cat socializer, which basically means you play with the cats, because you don't want them to just be in cages all day. Like, they want them to also have interaction, and they don't have the staff to do it. So they count on people to come in and socialize with the cats so that they also get used to being with people and things like that. So there are always ways to incorporate, whatever it would be into your daughter's life that could feel familiar. And the next thing is like honor and remember what was lost. So I think one thing that people try and do sometimes is just like forget the past and there is value in that, like not dwelling on the past and like how things used to be or your old school or something like that. I know I had a kid in class one year who was like, yeah, at my old school, like every single thing that, he would say, when he raised his hand was like, well, at my old school, we did it this way. At my old school, we did it that way. So it was almost like he was holding on to a little bit of like not being open to doing new things. So just reminding her that even if it doesn't feel familiar, you can still, of course, remember the way you used to do things, but there might be a new way of doing something that could kind of be a combination of both. And helping her remember, like, honor her feelings about the things she might miss during these transitions and talk to her about it. Like, don't be afraid to bring those things up. Like, is there anything that you miss about our old neighborhood? Whatever that would be. And then maybe she'll say something that, could give you insight of like, oh, I didn't realize that was important to her. Or if a beloved pet passes, or a family member is no longer around, maybe creating a memory book or holding a small ceremony. I know I've done that with pets before, with kids, and that's really powerful. And they can say, I know it might seem silly, even if it's a fish. Like, some kids get really attached to animals, even though obviously a dog or a cat might feel different, but sometimes they get even attached to smaller animals, and to us it may not seem like a big deal, but for them, they need to have that closure and they need to honor that pet that they love so much. And so, one thing you can say is, if she's grieving a pet, you know, ask her if she'd like to create a memory book. Or same thing with a person, like, would you like to do something to honor Papa or whoever it would be? I keep saying Papa because that's what my dad called, what my kids called, my dad. And so, um, same thing with moving. Like, what's one thing that makes you feel at home, or going to a new place, like a new apartment or a new condo or a new house? Like, what's something that would make you feel like this is home to you? So just having those conversations. And then same thing with the pet, like, or the person, what's something we could do to remember, fill in the blank, whatever the name is. And we've also planted trees in the honor of a loved one or in the honor of a pet. Like, that's another thing. Or we've painted rocks before about that. And it's just a nice little ceremony thing that you can do. So you can ask her, especially if you have a creative daughter, you can ask her, like, what would help you feel like you're honoring them and doing something in their memory. And this could even be a tradition of, like, I know every year on my dad's birthday, we go to one of his favorite restaurants, or we do an activity that we know he would have loved, or something like that. So just thinking about that. And then the next thing is encouraging that emotional expression and validation. So again, it's validating how she's feeling, even if to us it doesn't seem like as big of a deal. It's whether that's talking or drawing. Sometimes it's hard for them to verbally express it. So it's drawing it out or journaling about it and just being like, here's a journal. I just want you to write everything that's on your mind and just get it out. And then you can either choose to share it with me or it can be private. Or physical activities, like getting her involved, in releasing some of these feelings in a healthy way. Could be, doing a class together, or it could be going for a walk together, or it can be her enjoying like a physical sport that she likes, things like that. Because, all of that dopamine, those endorphins that are released during any kind of physical activity, even if it's a dance party, whatever it is, really help you release those negative emotions too. So that's really important to do, and helping her find something that does. And I've talked about this before, but even like if she's feeling a lot of anger, like even punching her pillow is something safe to do. Or I had a girl one time who wanted to break things, but we talked about, like, what are some safe things you could break that wouldn't be destructive to your house or your room. And so we decided toothpicks would be one thing. So, toothpicks come in like a 300 pack. And so we just worked to get her a little box of toothpicks. And when she felt like she needed to, safely, of course, she was a little bit older, but she would just break them. And that was healing for her in some way. So ask what she needs and try and, validate it. Like, okay, I can see why you would be angry. What is a way that would help you kind of get that out that would be safe for you and for others? And so even it's like not being afraid to talk to her about the divorce. So my parents were always very open about it, but also they got divorced really young. So I've always openly talked about the divorce. But it might feel a little bit raw still to talk about. And it's okay for you to say something like, it's okay to be upset about this. It's okay to need time to adjust. I'm not expecting this change to, be automatic. It's also okay if you like the change, if you feel like this is a relief for you too, because maybe there was a lot of arguing, and maybe, just asking her too, like, what are you feeling, and how can I support you through that? And then, building her confidence back up, or continuing to build her confidence through small, empowering choices. So letting her take the lead and making small decisions, like giving that will give her like a sense of control. So, like giving her options for dinner, like, what would you like to have for dinner tonight? Or what would you like to do for, our family time together this weekend? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Like, letting her make those small decisions can really help her feel more in control. So if it's moving to a new town, involving her in choosing like her room decor, or picking out her school supplies, or helping plan the new routine, like, what do you think would be, and I don't mean like let her, plan her own bedtime and things like that, but like, what would be something that you would want in your routine that would help you feel, secure, or feel happy, or feel calm, whatever that would be. And so if you're going through a family separation, it's asking how she wants her room to be organized, or special routines she'd like to keep or get into her life. Giving her choices just gives her that ownership, and it helps her feel empowered in a situation that can feel out of control. So that's even in a move, in any kind of a change. And then it's the last one is just finding comfort in those routines, and even in new traditions. So it's introducing like new traditions that can help your daughter feel just connected and just in touch with your family. So let's say that there is an illness in the family and it's a very serious thing. And so maybe there's like a family gratitude jar that you start together, or maybe there's a new routine that if you pray in your family, like you all do an extra prayer every day. Or if it is something like everyone writes down, or says at dinner or in the car, wherever it would be, one positive that happened today, or one thing that they appreciate about another family member, or whatever that would be, one, anything really. So, that is something that can really bring comfort, and it can also be another way to check in. And if your daughter is, like grieving a loss of some kind, maybe lighting a candle each night, or having dinner, like lighting a candle at dinner, or lighting a candle, that's like I don't know, just like a calming thing at night. Or maybe it's having special time to reflect and share memories together. Like, I know that, we share memories about my dad and funny stories when they come up, and they just help us remember him. And yes, of course, we're sad about him not being around anymore, but it also helps us laugh. Like, remember the one time that this happened, or even if it is a pet, like, oh my gosh, remember that one day when, he ran in the room and was looking all around for his certain ball, and then, whatever happened. So, whatever that would be, it's really finding that comfort in the routine, and also in finding new traditions. So you could say something like, how about we start something new, like a weekly family check-in, and everybody says like how their week's gone, or whatever that would be. Or what if we do a new activity as a family? Like, what would be something that you would enjoy doing with us as a family, or with me as a family, now that we're a smaller family, or in this new environment that we've moved, or in this new school year, whatever it would be? What's something that you'd like us to do together that would help us connect and feel like we're still close, even though there are a lot of changes that are happening around us? So, girls who feel emotionally supported, that's the main thing, is like have ways to process and difficult emotions. And what that does is it helps them build that resilience, a stronger sense of confidence, and face challenges and not be afraid of them, knowing that yes, there can be hard things that happen sometimes, but there are ways that you can adapt, and there are ways that you can process through it. And above all else, like feel the feeling that you're having and not always trying to keep them happy and upbeat, and like acknowledging that it's okay to feel anger. It's okay to feel frustration or sadness or happiness or excitement about a new room. Like maybe they feel a little bit bad that they're kind of looking forward to having a new room at dad's or mom's or whatever. And it's okay for them to feel that way. So, if your daughter is, you know, thinking about these things, or something is coming, it's just being proactive and thinking through what are a couple of things we could try to make this transition a little bit easier. So, this is all normal. These are things that happen in life. And, with the support, with the validation, with the check-ins, and you navigating your own feelings about it, this can be a really empowering experience. And it doesn't have to rock your daughter's confidence to where she takes steps back. And if she does, it's okay. All is not lost. Like you can step in while the transition is happening, or even if you're like, oh shoot, I'm listening to this and we've already gone through the transition, it's never too late. There's always a way. There's never too late of a time to start a conversation or to start one of these different tools that you can use in your life. So, thinking about all of these things is just going to help her feel a lot more secure in your relationship together. It's going to help build her confidence, not be afraid of changes. It's going to build those stronger family bonds, and it's going to really just bring you closer. Like I know for me, in hard things, there has been time where we've gotten closer. So I want to encourage you that if you are going through this, or if you have a family member who is, or a friend, please send this episode to them, because the intention of this podcast is always to help others. And I'm here for you if you need anything. Please don't be afraid to reach out at Girls Positivity Club on social media, or send me an email at Gmail, girlspositivityclub@gmail. And if you are going through a transition like this, I'm sending you a big hug. And if you're not, like I said, send this to someone it could help. And until next time, keep raising those confident girls who are not afraid of challenges. I'll see you next week. Thanks for joining another empowering episode of the Raising Confident Girls podcast. Share today's insights with caregivers and friends, building beautiful relationships with strong girls. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're not just a podcast, we're a community. Follow Girls Positivity Club on social media for more empowering content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. This podcast empowers you, supporting incredible girls. Let's create strong, beautiful relationships with the girls in our lives. I appreciate you listening today. Stay confident, stay connected. Until next time, keep raising those confident girls. You've got this.